So yeah, we're talking about one equation, which I call the God equation, which I write about in my book, The God Equation, but there's a problem. The problem is that the theory is so complicated that no human has been able to solve the consequences of this equation. That's where quantum computers can come in. Quantum computers can solve the equation and then test it to see whether or not it really is a theory of everything or just the imagination of some physicist. So that was my previous book, The God Equation. So that's why I decided to write this book, Quantum Supremacy, because it may eventually take a quantum computer to calculate with what is called string theory. And I'm one of the founders of string theory. And we think that is Einstein's theory that eluded him for the last 30 years of his life.
This quantum computing creating the answer to this God molecule or this God equation, if this does happen, what would that mean to you, to a person who's studied this and been a scientist your whole life and the way you look at the world? How much would that change if there was some sort of a provable equation as to why things become ever more complex and universes exist and people exist?
Well, that's my childhood dream. As I mentioned, when I was 8 years old, everything changed in my life. A great scientist had just died, and all the newspapers said that he could not finish his final and greatest theory. And they put a picture of his desk on the news. The desk was open and unfinished. So I was fascinated by that story. That story changed my life because I said to myself, why couldn't he finish that theory? Why don't I try to finish that theory?
That's amazing.
So I went to the library and I looked up this man. This man's name was Albert Einstein. The theory was the theory of everything, an equation 1 inch long that would allow us to, quote, read the mind of God. These are Einstein's words. So I said to myself, that's for me. That's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So now we have the theory. It's called string theory. There have been TV documentaries on the subject, but it's not testable. So I think that a quantum computer may one day be powerful enough to test it in the memory of a computer. However, we have to be careful. Remember that novel, The Restaurant at the End of the Galaxy? What happened in that novel was the aliens of the future created a supercomputer to calculate the theory of everything, the ultimate theory. So the computer chugged and spit out the answer. And the answer was, the meaning of the universe was 42.
What is that?
So much for that. So I would hope that our quantum computer, computing on string theory, I hope would not give us the number 42 as the meaning of reality.
Maybe we're just too dumb to know what that means.
Yeah. But that's what motivated me.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Well, that's a beautiful motivation. You just thinking about you being an 8-year-old looking at the photograph of Einstein's desk, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love stories like that. I love origin stories because I've always wondered with someone like you.
Yeah, well, that changed my life.